Hello, in this video we're going to take a look at how we can customize the layouts within site lists using Lightning Forms. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my site contents and I'm going to work with a contacts list, mostly because the contacts list already has quite a lot of fields. So we're going to go into that and improve the layout a little bit. So what you'll notice first of all with a modern form is when we click onto new, we get the side panel loading here. And as you can see, we've got a lot of fields here that we can sort of scroll up and scroll down in order to see them all. But what I want to do is improve the layout a little bit by getting rid of some of the fields that aren't used all the time, maybe into a different tab, so that we can fill out the key fields more quickly as a business user. So in order to launch the Lightning Forms Designer, what we can do on the Actions menu here is come down to Lightning Forms Customization Dialog, and that's going to launch this dialog box, which will show me which forms exist inside the list and which forms have already been customized. So just as an example, I've not actually made any customizations. I just launched the customization tool and saved the form so that you can see this is what a form looks like when it's been customized, so we can tell it's not the out-of-the-box form. And we can see that the edit form and the display form used for editing items, of course, and displaying items, they have not been customized at all yet. So in order to launch the designer for the edit form, we can click onto customize. However, just to make sure that you're aware of this, you need to have at least one list item when you're customizing the edit form or the display form, so that Lightning Forms can get the context of the field values, which will be really useful to you when you're building expressions and so on with inside your forms. So in order to further customize the new form, what I'm going to do is just click onto the new form.aspx here, and that will launch the designer. Okay, and in the designer here, we can start to change the layout. So first of all, in the top left-hand corner, we've got the form settings. And clicking onto this, we can actually change the default size of that panel for the new form. So currently it's set to medium. We could set it obviously to small or large or full screen if we wanted to. I, however, am going to leave that as it is. But just to point out, that's where you could go through and make those changes if you wanted to. Also, just to point out that as you do resize your screen, no matter which size you choose, it is a responsive form, so the fields and so on will adjust to suit the size of the screen, whether it's a mobile device, tablet, and so on. So the other thing we can do is consider maybe two columns rather than a single column of fields. And the way that we could do that is actually by adding a new section to the form. So you can see here we've got the one column sections, two columns, or three column sections. So choosing a two column section gives me the ability to either add new fields to each of the columns, or we can simply drag and drop the existing fields that we have here into two columns. So we could have, for example, the first name and the last name in the left-hand column, and maybe the full name over on the right-hand side column, and so on. So we, of course, have a double width panel when we're going through and creating new items. So that's one way of doing things. Another way of improving the layout is also by adding tabs. So what I'm going to do actually is add the tab down here, and we'll remove these columns in just a moment. So by clicking onto the plus button, you'll see that we've got all of the fields that make up the SharePoint list. So these are all the columns available to me already. If I scroll down a little bit further, we have some different controls that you can also add. So we have tabs that we can add onto the form, which we're going to do in just a moment. We also have buttons with actions, which is a separate video that is going to take us through some of the different actions that you can create with inside your form behind buttons. Also toolbars, which contain buttons. And we've also got this rich text control as well, which is really useful for perhaps providing instruction to your users on how to complete the form. So more complex forms may require some form of instruction that you can add on there, and it's just simply a way of adding text or images or whatever you like as a rich text to your forms. It may even be that you add this at the top of the form as some form of heading with a logo or something like that if you desire it. Further down, we've also got lists and libraries, and this is looking at the lists and libraries that also make up this site. Again, in a separate video, we're going to add a sublist onto our form so that you can have that sort of one-to-many type relationship between two different SharePoint lists within inside a single form, which makes completing forms a lot quicker. If you consider sort of like a employee and expenses or something like that, there may be many expense items that an employee is logging, and they could do that on one form rather than going into two different forms in two different lists. So we're going to add some tabs, and the tabs are really straightforward. All we do is click onto the tabs here. So that's created the tab control. We can select how many tabs we want. So we get one to begin with, but we can go through and add 2 or 3 more. And you'll see here that we've got the image icon, which we can set. So if we do want to use some form of icon as well, you can. And to change the label of those tabs, it's just simply double click it, and you can remove the existing label and add the labels that you would like on your tabs. So in here we're going to have main details. Over in the middle one we're going to have address details, and over on the right here we'll have comments. And in order to drag those fields into these tabs, just make sure that you have the tab selected, and then you could either add the fields again or you can simply drag them and drop them. So the main details here, I'm going to drag the first name, the last name, and the full name. And let's just drag that down a little further. Okay, so we've got the first name, last name, and full name, and we'll go through and start adding some address details in here. So we can go through and take the address and just drag that up. And sometimes, just as a little tip, it may actually be quicker to just remove those fields and add them again from here. So I can go through more easily rather than dragging up and scrolling on a large form. We can go and add the address and the city, the zip, and of course the state. And finally, we'll also add the country. Okay, so we've got the fields that we want underneath that tab, and under the comments tab here, we're going to go through and simply go through and add the comments. Okay, so we've got everything that we want. I'm going to go through and actually just remove this this new section that we created. And we can remove some of these if they're not necessary. I'm just going to remove them for boredom purposes, so you're not seeing me drag all of these different fields. I think you get the idea how you can simply drag these and drop them under each of the different tabs. Okay, so that's our form completed. We've got the main details, we've got the address details, we've got the comments. So now we can go through and click onto Save Form. So it says the configuration has saved, and now we can go through and test it. So as I navigate back to the site contents, let's go into the contacts list, and we'll click onto New. And you can see here we've got this new designed form where I can very quickly fill out my details. In a following video, we're going to do a calculation where the full name actually gets populated automatically, so we don't have to fill that out. And then we've got the address details. Of course, we could fill those out here, and any comments. And we can hit save. And the other thing we're going to do with that form is also customize what that save button does. So we can do that in the actions video, which will be following on from this one. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. That's how we can basically go through and launch the designer. Of course, the other two forms, the read form and the edit form, remain as default, so we can go through and apply the same changes to that as well. On our roadmap is to allow you to synchronize all of those forms. So basically we can export the configuration from the new form and import it into the edit form and the display form, which will save you that hassle. Okay, many thanks for watching.